I submitted my resignation. And then my bosses were probably like, oh, thank God. Thank God she's going.
You actually went from political communications to joining a startup, eCommerce, and then going into finance.
By accident.
That's quite a transition.
And then I had a sort of very quick light bulb moment.
The aha moment.
Exactly. And then I thought, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do something with content, probably on my own.
Welcome everyone, I'm Sahib from The Bas Show, and today we have another Bas guest. None other than a founder of the most innovative and dynamic media company in Thailand. And it's one of those that I bet that if you haven't already followed on Instagram, because I'm probably sure you already have, because for me, it's one of those personal pages that I scroll every day. Yes, that's right. We've got Niki, the founder of Bitesize BKK, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Niki.
Thank you so much for having me. That's the perfect introduction. I didn't even have to pay you for that.
I kid you not, right? Because that is so legit. Like, just the way I want to let you know that for me and the rest of my family, I can show you on Instagram as well. Bitesize BKK is actually always rotating in my family chats.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's essentially why I launched something like Bitesize.
I'm not surprised. And you know what the funny story is, Niki, that when so we go back maybe like 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, a long
right?
time.
Obviously, when I knew you the first time when you were back in the finance, which we'll get to, we'll get there. But when I knew you back then, when I was running my previous startup, all of a sudden this Bitesize BKK comes around, and it's just one of those platforms, that media channels, that it gives you that crunchy news in that 5 or 7 seconds that you need to know, and then just move on, right? And then I realized later, like, who is the founder of this, right? And then when I realized, like, holy shit, it's Niki, someone that I know in my network. Like, that's a fantastic idea, right? But that is precisely one of the reasons I wanted to call you here today, Niki.
Thank you so much.
Everyone here should know who Niki is. I want to share and let people know who is Niki, right? So Niki, like, here's a good question for you, right? Like,
okay.
Who is Niki? Right? Like, share us a bit about your background. Like, where have you studied? Are you a Bangkokian? Or, what is your background? Have you always been in the media or like the journalism background? What led you to who you are today?
That's a loaded question. We might be here all day because I have 10 different answers. So in a nutshell, right, in a bite-sized way, I grew up in Bangkok. My parents are Thai. My mom is actually half Thai, half English. So that's why I don't look completely Asian. And,
Thought so.
people often ask, where are you from? Are you Thai? And พูดภาษาไทยได้ก็โตที่เมืองไทย So I always went to international school. I graduated from Shrewsbury in Bangkok, and then I did my undergrad and master's in the UK. But little known fact, I have a degree in politics.
Oh.
So whenever people ask, did you always want to be a journalist? I still don't, even to this day, consider myself a journalist because I don't do investigative reporting. I'm not the first to break the news by any means, but we'll get to that. So degree in politics, people often ask why, but even to this day, I'm very interested in politics and headlines because, as you know, especially today with all these elections going on across the world, politics drives a lot of narratives, businesses, the economy, a politician says something, stocks can dip or grow, elections, everything is connected. And I always thought to understand the modern world and how components come together, you have to understand current events.
I agree.
And essentially that's politics. So that's my undergrad degree. And then my master's, I was like, might as well. I already spent 3 years doing politics. Let's do another degree.
Okay.
So then I went to London School of Economics.
Fantastic.
And studied political communications, which was where, in retrospect, I learned a lot about modern campaigning and effective communication. And I actually did my thesis on election campaigns. Forgot all about it now. But what people often ask me is that, how do you relate that kind of degree to the work that you're doing now? And I always say this to everyone, that it makes you a better writer and you think about things a lot more critically from all kinds of angles. And you have to read a lot. If you don't enjoy reading, analyzing, and all these things, you're not going to be a good content creator.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And that's very interesting you said that. But so after you graduated, you did your master's.
After I graduated, I came back to Bangkok.
Okay.
So I always knew I wanted to come back. My friends are here, my family are here. And then I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially back then. So that was 2014. And then I joined eCommerce.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I joined eCommerce in 2014. And that was the boom of like the e-commerce boom.
Yeah.
That was when Lazada was setting up their office in Bangkok as well. And we were just moving to Mkotia around the same time as them.
Right.
So for those who don't know, eCommerce is Southeast Asia's leading e-commerce enabler. So back then, no one had any idea how to do e-commerce, right? Lazada just launched. I think Shopee wasn't even around then. So a lot of brands that wanted to go digital, wanted to go online, had to rely on platforms like eCommerce to do absolutely everything, like warehouse marketing, logistics, everything, delivery, doing their websites, how to work out inventory. So I started working in the marketing team for PR and communications.
Got it.
So that's where I learned essentially about what a startup was. 2014, it doesn't seem like a long time, but it was 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. I mean, a decade. I mean, today, 10 years is a long time.
10 years is a long
but you're
time.
right. Like, it doesn't feel
old. And, essentially that's where I learned everything. And it was like super fast paced. And I really struggled at first. I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? I've never had a proper job before.
But for
it was
you,
right after graduation.
But for you to join a startup, once you went down the route of doing, I wouldn't say journalism, but doing everything that you did in the bachelor's and master's, was that like your goal? Did you always want to join like a startup industry and then kind of like venture into that, journalism / PR communication?
I actually didn't know what a startup was until I joined it. I had another job in an advertising agency first, but that only lasted like 7 months because then I thought, it's kind of boring. I'm not enjoying this, just being a copywriter. I felt like there had to be more. I wanted to learn more.
Right.
So then I seeked out this job and I was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And everything was happening really fast paced.
And what other better industry than startups? Because like it's such a high, steep learning curve, right?
Exactly. And I didn't have, admittedly, a lot of the technical skills. I didn't know how to format a newsletter. I didn't know how to even use like Google Ads. So it was a bootcamp and you have to learn on the job and everyone around you is really young, very competitive and extremely like high skilled. So I think for once I was put in a place where I thought, oh my God, I'm quite uncomfortable. I'm not doing a good job of this. But then, you put your thinking cap on and then you start to grow into the job. And then you start to think, oh, maybe I can do this. And
you have to be uncomfortable to grow out of it, right? And this is what I always tell my friends. I mean, for me, it was kind of different because like I went from a corporate world working in Deloitte for like 6 months, knowing that this wasn't for me. I can't sit behind a desk crunching numbers to founding a startup on my own. Yeah. Yes, I've been fortunate enough to kind of help the family business, but like that whole journey of then starting up a company from scratch was a journey for me myself.
Yeah.
Right. And then so I can definitely resonate with you like the largest startups at the very beginning. I always feel like because you call yourself a startup, like they expect the employees to be able to grind and hustle
like the founder,
the founders, right? And it's a bit like what I kind of expect my team members to do as well. But cool, man. So yes, eCommerce has done extremely well. I think they're actually filing for IPO as well.
I think they're planning to,
right? Yes, Rivakun brothers have done well.
Yeah, definitely.
That journey into the startup industry, did you then like ever envision like, hey man, working in a startup is cool, but at some point, I'd like to go down the journey of building my own startup at some point?
Never. Actually, one of the couple of places I worked at where I wish I stayed a bit longer. Just because I learned so much from everyone, from my bosses.
How many years were you there for?
Just over 2.
Okay.
Just over 2. And, I learned a lot. I was still doing a lot of things. And then, but I just felt, it was time to move on. But things are always better when you think back.
Right.
Do you ever feel the same? It's like in retrospect.
No, I agree because sometimes, you regret over moments and decisions. But if you think about it, like in retrospect, like you said, it's all part of connecting the dots. Right, like if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen today.
I agree. Yeah. That helps me sleep at night. So eCommerce, so that was where I still, I'm connected to the network that I made from then.
Fantastic.
All my team, they've gone off to do like incredible things.
Right.
And so learned a lot. And then, so I left after 2 years because I wanted, back in that time, I wanted more of an exposure to the business world.
Right.
I thought e-commerce was a lot of content, analytical skills, yes. But ultimately I was doing a lot of writing, which is ironically what I'm doing now. But back then I wanted to be a bit more exposed to Thai businesses and understand how sort of business models work. I felt like that would be sort of a good step into whatever would lead me next. So I applied for a job at Digital Ventures, which is now rebranded as SCBX.
Right.
Right. So back then, Digital Ventures was the VC arm of Siam Commercial Bank.
Correct.
So that's what it was known. That's where we met.
That's correct.
That's where we met,
That's
right?
where we met.
And then, so I initially joined to do marketing.
Okay.
But for some reason, there was a slot, an opening in the VC team.
Oh.
And so I got shipped there.
Interesting. So that part I didn't know.
Yeah, I got like slotted there by accident because I don't have a finance background.
Okay.
I am really bad at math.
Yeah.
I can barely use an Excel. I'm so bad at math.
Holy shit.
And then, so, like I said, I have 2 degrees in political communications.
Right.
I've never had to crunch numbers. So I was like, this isn't quite what I signed up for, but let's roll with it.
Yep.
So I was there for just a bit over 2 years as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but that's where I think that's the most transformative 2 years of my life.
Wow. So you actually went from political communications to joining a startup, eCommerce, and then going into finance.
By accident.
That's quite a transition.
What a transition.
That's quite a transition. But so tell me about the whole finance journey part of things, right? So, I mean, when you got to it by accident, like, how was that whole learning curve? And is it something that you would have ever imagined doing? And then,
no. And if you ask my old team, they would say like, I'm much better off where I am now.
Okay.
I think when I was at Digital Ventures, it was a completely different kind of learning experience to what I had at e-commerce.
Right.
Because at e-commerce, it was like, okay, I had to do writing and content, things I knew how to do, but just in a much more competitive environment, challenging environment. But this, working for a VC firm, you have to have all these technical skill sets that I have never been trained to do. Doing like valuations, just doing simple math, even that was like a bit of a head scratcher. And thinking about things in a much more analytical way. You had to look at companies, see what they could be worth, judging from the current business model and everything, VC, the basics. And that was like a complete sort of re-education.
So what is Bitesize worth? What's the valuation?
Let me think about that.
But how many checks did you write, or how many checks or deals were you part of, Niki?
I was actually an analyst, so I was the most junior position in the team. So I assisted on a lot of deals, but I didn't go and sort of win any deals. But I supported doing the content, doing the decks. Sometimes doing better, sometimes not doing so well. And then I was there for 2 years, but that was where I got the sort of complete 360 exposure to Thailand's business scene. I made a lot of connections there, like my team members are great. A lot of them I still hang out with today.
Right. It was a very fun and vibrant
well.
team, actually. I remember Paul was leading it back then. Was it during that time when they also ventured into Web3?
No, that was
with the
Ripple.
Ripple deal.
It was Ripple, but not the focus on Web3 as it is today.
Got
but
it.
Ripple,
Fun fact, I mean, we, Seekster was part of Digital Ventures Batch 0, which was the lab rat, basically, that batch. But that's where we met, actually. Yes. And that's how we've been friends ever since. And like I said, I actually never realized that you were the founder of Bitesize, right? But
I keep a low profile.
So tell us, you left Digital Ventures and you got that whole finance side of things, analytical side of things. Then what happened after that? Was this something you just realized, hey, I want to go back to media? Was Bitesize something you just stumbled upon? Tell us the ideation of how Bitesize came around.
let me get to that, right? When you've been somewhere for about 2 years and you're enjoying the job, it's a challenge. You're learning so much, and I'm getting a whole view of the entire ecosystem and also how banks work, right, in Thailand. But when you've been doing something that's not completely you for 2 years, you start to think about, you have that moment where it's like, is this for me? Is this the most value I can add to something? And I remember I was probably almost turning 29 at that time. And then I thought to myself, I had a moment and I thought to myself, I'm not good at this job. You know, I landed it, I tried to make it work, but this isn't for me. I'm not delivering the most value. This is not core to who I am.
Right.
So I think everyone goes through a bit of that crisis before they turn 30. So I was just turning 29.
Right.
And I thought, I want to be building something or working on something I'm good at and that I enjoy and that I like. And what's that? So I always gravitate towards media. Even when studying politics, you know, like I said, I've always enjoyed that degree because it allowed me to write and to think about things and read and consume. I've always loved doing that. All of my internships since high school and college, I've done media internships.
Right.
So when I was in my second year of university, I actually did a summer at the Bangkok Post as well.
Okay. That's interesting.
It's super old school,
Wow.
you know, and then it's still very, very influential today.
100%.
And Bangkok Post was, you know, set the standard for English language news in Thailand.
Yep.
But it also made me realize that, oh, you know, traditional media, very traditional, maybe also wasn't for me.
Yep.
So then I started to think about all these things. And then I had a sort of very quick like light bulb moment.
The aha moment.
Like aha moment, exactly. And then I thought, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit my job. And I'm going to do something with content, probably on my own. I wasn't sure quite what it was going to look like.
Right.
So then I submitted my resignation. And then my bosses were probably like, oh, thank God. Thank God she's going. And and then they were supportive. They were like, yeah, I think, you know, you're probably
it's
meant
about time,
for something.
Niki.
Yeah, about time. You're probably meant for something else. You know, I've always said I like content. And then within that month, the idea of a Bitesize came really naturally. It came to me within a week.
Wow. So actually you resigned not having the idea yet, but you just knew that you wanted to do something in content and you just took that leap of faith of, all right, I'm resigning.
Yeah, I'm resigning. I'm going to go back to my roots.
Nice. And did that just come like another aha moment? Like, you know, you want to do this?
I'm not even making this up. And maybe I didn't think it through enough, but in a good way, it's probably good not to overanalyze these things. Right.
You know, that's very interesting you say that, right? Because a lot of times, like, when we think about ideas, and this is the problem with majority of people out there that want to do something but will never try or
and then
never
they talk themselves out.
They talk themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And you're right, because they overanalyze things, right? And all you sometimes need to do is take the first step.
Yes.
Right? And then you can figure out what happens after that.
Yes.
But was that the exact path that happened to you as well? Like, did you just think, I'm going to do something in content, bite size, and then like, you know, did you have to go through like the whole business plan, knowing that, you know, you were an analyst as well, you know, you worked at a startup? Like, how did you come around that whole, like, you know, this is what I want to do and this is how it's going to play out and this is like the business model? Or did you just kind of be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to try it out?
I just kind of like, I winged it. I'm going to do this. And then it just started. But
boom.
The idea that I had, it was pretty much, like I said, a week after I decided to pursue some kind of content.
Right.
I looked to myself, thought about my own media diet, my own media consumption.
Yeah.
I looked to my friends and my peers and my network. And I thought, why do people always come to me and say, อธิบายหน่อยดิ อันนี้กำลังมีอะไรนะ แบบแกเล่าสั้นๆหน่อย Tell me about this in like 5 seconds. I only want to know the gist because I always love reading. So a lot of my friends always come to me and like, oh, what's going on with this? Do you know about this? Gossip. Business, politics, I got it all. So then I thought to myself, there's not, at that time, there wasn't any kind of media platform or business that resonated with people like me. I, you know, went to international school, then I pursued higher education in the UK. And I think we have quite a large network of international students. But there was no media that represented us, although we're a growing growing market.
I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more because, in fact, I think like Niki, you were 4 years ahead of time.
It may be.
You know, you were 4 years ahead of the trend. Let me rephrase that, right? Because like I feel everyone today, whether we're on the SkyTrain, whether we're in the toilet, or wherever we are, like we are all consuming short form, like bite-sized, content.
It's both good and bad because it's affecting attention spans.
I agree as well, right? But I mean, like, in such a fast-paced life today, like you just want the jizz of it,
You
like
want the gist.
you just want the jizz of it.
No drama.
No
Just
dramas. Just give me the jizz of it. And like, I kid you not, like candid, no lie, no bullshit. It's actually one of like my go-to news channels.
Thank you
When
so
I
much.
have to just get a summary of what's happening in Bangkok or Thailand, right? And sometimes like I hear news, I see news from Bitesize before my friends actually talk about it.
Really?
Right? Yeah, because like, I mean, again, I'm scrolling on Instagram. And because the algorithm knows that I view Bitesize very often, I actually get Bitesize on top of my newsfeed.
Wow, that's so
Right?
good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
But what is Bitesize's like next plan? Like, what's your vision?
I'm still working on that.
But okay, so from a business perspective, I'm pretty sure Bitesize has reached a tremendous amount of network and audience. Like, where do you see yourself in the next, I'm not going to say 5 years.
I've been thinking about this for the past couple of months. อยากเริ่มแตก bite size ให้เป็น vertical ตอนเนี้ยเรา known as news for everyday consumption
Right.
whether it's economics news politics news lifestyle where
Right.
people eating this weekend แต่เริ่มคิดว่าเดี๋ยวนี้มันมี fragment ใน content space เยอะมากๆอยากที่จะเริ่มกลับมาทำ finance content investing made easy หรือว่า things about kids motherhood มันเป็น content ที่แบบมันมี room
คอนเทนต์ที่
to
ตัวเองจะ consume ด้วย
ใช่ exactly จะได้ของฟรี แล้วก็ education or travel or whatever I think that's where I'd like it to go and I've had a lot of time to reflect I'm very lucky to be able to run Bitesize effectively on my own but as time goes by and as it gets a bit bigger เนี่ยเสียดายที่ไม่มีทีม
Wait, you're telling me that Bitesize is all Niki?
ใช่ทุกเช้าทุกวัน
No.
Yes you know this you didn't know this?
No, you're joking.
No.
I thought this was like 4 years ago, and maybe by now you would have had a team of at least
no
3.
เรายังเป็นคนเดียวอยู่ทุกวันเลยเนี่ย
Holy shit. Okay. Respect.
thank you
Respect.
เนี่ยตอนนี้อยู่กับยูอ่ะไม่มีคอนเทนต์ออกเลย
Sorry, guys. Right after this, you'll have a breaking news.
Yeah.
No, but
ทำทุกอย่างคนเดียวหมดเลย
ไม่แต่โอเคงั้นคือคำถามต่อไปคือว่าไม่เคยคิดที่จะ scale อะครับคือแบบ
คิดตลอดแต่มันหาคนยากอะ
จริงอะครับ
I
คือ
think
ตอนนี้
so
แบบคนที่อยากทำคอนเทนต์และทำคอนเทนต์ที่เก่งก็มีเยอะอยู่นะฮะ
actually not gonna lie นะ we have a lot of like inquiries aboutแบบ I'm a writer I'm a video whatever อยากมาแบบร่วมงานกับ Bitesize and I always say ไม่มี position เปิดเพราะว่ากิ๊ดรู้สึกว่าเราไม่ได้อยู่ใน level ที่เรา take care of people's career ได้ full time and I think it's so irresponsible to take people on to help you grow but you're not able to create a stable or long-term career path for them I think you have to be very mindful of like what people might have to give up to come and join you
right
so that's always been on my mind but I do have 2 great girls working with me คนหนึ่งทำวิดีโอ
I've seen her around for sure
อีกคนหนึ่งทำวิดีโอเก่งตัดวิดีโอเก่งพูดเก่ง works right อีกคนหนึ่งก็ช่วยทำ newsletter ซึ่งก็แบบเขียนเก่งมาก perfect
You're trying to tell me that you're the one that's screening through the news and actually creating all that content
artwork ด้วย
artwork ด้วย and then the เนื้อหา all it within let's say maximum I would say like 1 hour max from when the news
ไม่
happens
เคยเลทกว่านั้น
ใช่ไหม
นั่งอยู่ตลอดเวลา
And
no
you're-
that's not true
and you're a mother as well by the way
I'm a new mother
new mother
I'm a new mother
how old is your daughter
turning 5 months next week
wow respect
thank you
Man, I think this is the reason why I wanted to invite you today. Because like I don't think no one knows about Niki in this form, right? Like everyone knows Niki, like for the friends that you have, I'm sure they know you. But like people that read Bitesize know nothing about the founder, right? But
actually, to interrupt now, I've always wanted to keep it that way. I've always been hesitant up until I think last year.
Okay.
Hesitant มากที่จะ advertise profile หรือหน้าของตัวเอง on
ทำไม
Bitesize
ครับทำไม
เพราะว่ารู้สึกว่าหนึ่งมันเหมือนแบบมันมี internet troll เยอะกว่า
อ๋อครับ
สอง and the more serious reason เนี่ยนะก็คือเพราะว่า when people realize ว่าข่าวที่อ่านทุกวันอ่ะมันถูกเขียน by คนเดียวอ่ะกลัวว่ามันจะดู bias and that makes me think a lot about how I present the news and how I present myself outside of the founder role.
Fair. I think that you've been doing a good job because like obviously the fact that you've been covering several sectors and not being agnostic, I mean being agnostic to industry agnostic has been very helpful, right? But to your first point, I understand what people will troll and whatnot, and honestly, this is something I faced myself as well. And this was like a question I asked myself for the past a year and a half as well. Because I've always been on the other side of the stage, presenting or like being, interviewed. But I always ask myself, like, what's stopping me to actually go out there and share my own experience or share my own journey, right? And I was kind of scared of what the internet would have perceived me. And that's why I launched the Base Studio and the Base Show. You know what the meaning of Base is?
No.
It's funny no one asks me this question.
Actually, I was thinking to myself, แปลว่าอะไรวะ
In the slang world, this rapper Lil B, who is known as like the based god, essentially base means being real. Not caring about what other people think about you. Being able to express yourself, not caring about what other people think about your opinions. And that's when I was like, yeah, I feel like that. Like, I feel like we should be based. And I can tell you're based, and that's why we want to bring around, with this one simple mic or tool, like this is how we can share our experience to the world. And I would say like, you know what? Don't care about what people think about you. People have no work to do sometimes, but to troll people. But there's like a lot of other people that appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much. No, that honestly makes my week.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I mean, that's the other angle of like, I feel how it's so difficult to like kind of being who you are on the internet. And that's something I always tell myself, like, how people somehow they change their personality. They've got like one personality on the internet and they've got the other personality on in real life. It's tough. It's tough being fake.
ใช่เหนื่อยน่าจะเหนื่อย
just be yourself, be real, and that's what we want to be able to do, right? Sometimes it's just about really letting go of that protocol. Sometimes
ไม่ micromanage
ใช่ right? And see how that works out, because could be a very interesting way to scale out.
I think so.
And the reason I say that is like you have been ahead of the trend 4 years ago, right?
เราใหญ่ได้กว่านี้เยอะแต่ว่า
everything that we're seeing right now is happening so quick and it's going to evolve even quicker. I feel like even despite doing all of this base show, like we're jumping on the bandwagon quite late, right? But I always think about it this way. It's never too late because if you keep asking the same questions, like you said, if you keep overanalyzing, you're going to be sidelined.
จะไม่ทำสักที
ไม่ทำเลยใช่ไหม Tell us a bit more about your loyal community. What's data telling us? Who are these people? Are they more Thais, expats? Who are these people that are consuming Bitesize Bangkok?
Sure. I think I created Bitesize with a very, very specific audience in mind. I read somewhere in an article ตอนที่ยังอยู่ Digital Venture อยู่เนี่ยว่าเวลา you จะ create product อะไรหรือแบรนด์อะไรเนี่ย you ต้องปิดตาแล้วก็นึกถึง the ideal customer ของ product อยู่เขาหน้าตาเป็นยังไงเขาชอบทานข้าวที่ไหนเขาแต่งตัวยังไงวันๆเขา consume อะไรในมือถือ so I close my eyes แล้วเราก็คิดว่า ideal customer ของเราหน้าตาเป็นยังไง ideal reader and I created a profile ว่าคงเป็นคนไทยอายุประมาณ24 ถึง 35 ซึ่ง that's our biggest audience now 25 to 35 อาจจะเรียนโรงเรียนอินเตอร์มาจบเมืองนอกหรือไม่ก็เรียนเมืองไทยแต่ว่ามีคล้ายๆว่า interest in English language news เป็น modern urban person very in the know business tech ทำงาน family business ทำงาน McKinsey หรือว่าอยู่ Shopee อยู่ Lazada whatever เป็นแบบเป็น modern Thai person and so I went back to the basics แล้วก็คิดว่าคนแบบเนี้ยจะอยากอ่านข่าวแบบไหนจะอยากอ่านข่าวในรูปแบบอะไรแล้วก็อ่านข่าวเรื่องอะไร and that's how I created sort of like the template for bite size ตอนที่ทำยังไม่มีใครทำ news as a product when you think about it now everyone is doing branded news มันไม่ได้แปลว่าทุกอัน sponsored นะแต่ทุกอันมันถูก deliver มาให้เป็นเหมือน product อะมันต้องดูดีมันต้อง going digital เนี่ยไม่ได้แปลว่า just อัปโหลดขึ้นเว็บไซต์แล้วจบมันมี strategy มันมีภาษาของมัน no one was doing that so essentially ก็เลยทำให้ audience นี้ขึ้นมาแล้วตอนแรกๆเลยที่รู้ว่ามันน่าจะ work ก็ถึง target group เนี่ย beyond family and friend ที่ไอแบบบังคับว่า follow หน่อย follow หน่อยกำลังแบบเนี่ยเราแต่งานมาทำเพจเนี่ยทุกคนก็follow ไปอย่างนั้นแต่ว่า within a couple of months เนี่ยเราก็เริ่มเห็นว่าเฮ้ยมัน follower มันขึ้นแล้วเราก็เข้าไป track profile ของคนที่อ่านมันเป็นคน target market ที่เราอยากได้จริงๆเป็น friends of friends ที่เราไม่รู้จักแต่เราไปดูว่าเขาทำงานอะไรทำที่ไหนแล้วมันก็เริ่มแบบ employees of this company คนนี้อยู่ family business คนนี้ก็อ่าน I bump into people and they say เฮ้ยแบบอยู่ทำอันนี้เหรอแบบ I love reading it every day มันเริ่มกลายมาเป็น routine ของคน so that's when I started to think เฮ้ยแบบ maybe อะไรที่เรา create มามันเริ่มที่จะมี value ให้คนนะ and that's the goes back to your original question ว่าใครเป็นคนอ่าน bite size ที่จริงใครอ่านก็ได้แต่
the most loyal
you'd be
the people
surprised
that actually enjoy
ใช่ you'd be surprised to see ว่ามันเป็นคนไทยซะส่วนมาก
interesting being a woman or a man has different responsibilities and the kind of work-life balance that you otherwise would have imagined it differently
no honestly เรารู้สึกว่าเป็นผู้หญิงในเมืองไทยมัน I feel lucky a lot of people always ask เป็นผู้หญิงรู้สึกว่ามันมี disadvantage อะไรไหมเรารู้สึกว่าเราพูดได้เต็มปากเลยว่าเราไม่เคยมี disadvantage เลย if anything อยู่เมืองไทยเป็นผู้หญิงมันมี advantage ด้วยซ้ำเพราะคนมันอาจจะ kinder to you in some instances but I honestly feel like no I've honestly never felt like being a woman makes being an entrepreneur or anything more challenging ไม่เคยมีเรื่อง gender เข้ามาอยู่ในหัวเลยand actually in a way it's a privilege to be able to เป็นผู้หญิงที่ทำงานของตัวเองได้แล้วก็ยังมีครอบครัวได้ you can have that option in life
what's your biggest fear Niki
my biggest fear in work or in life
just generally just want to know from a mother / woman / entrepreneur perspective right like what's the biggest fear
I think values I'm seeing a bit of a trend ในเมืองไทยว่าเดี๋ยวนี้ we're honoring a lot of like values that don't necessarily I think promote healthy state of minds people are sort of very concerned aboutเอารูปลง social media portraying your life some kind of way and it's a lot of show ที่แบบไม่มี substance แล้วก็ I'm a bit concerned ว่า if that's the way ที่ society มันเริ่มไปเริ่ม prioritize หลายอย่างที่ส่วนตัวคิดว่าแบบมันอาจจะไม่ได้ healthy กับ state of mind มัน that can set off a lot of wrong things so I think one of my biggest concerns is like ทำ business หรือเป็น parent หรือ just เป็นแบบ functioning person in society I'm concerned ว่าแบบต่อไปในโลกเนี่ย as things get more commoditized and stuff มัน values คนมันจะเปลี่ยนไปยังไง
That's a very good point actually That's a very good point เพราะว่าเอาจริงคือมันก็เป็นสิ่งที่เราเห็นในชีวิตเราทุกวัน
ใช่
how people believe that you need to fake it till you make it and that becomes like a mantra for a lot of people and do it for their gram whether that means going beyond their means to purchase something or being with someone that they're not supposed to be with or trying to just be someone else right คือเห็นด้วยเลยครับ Niki like I've enjoyed this conversation tremendously and I've learned so much and I'm sure that our friends that are watching this or will get to eventually watch this will have a lot to get inspired from you but like what's the one bite size message that you would give away, you know, like kind of something that you live by and something that you just want to share with the rest of the people, given your journey thus far?
Bite-sized advice เลยนะสั้นๆ This is how I live my life อยากทำอะไรทำเลยมันฟังดู generic มาก but it's actually a lot of thought goes into it because that's how I started the brand, that's how I started my business, that's how, you know, I make a lot of decisions in my life อยากไปเที่ยวที่ไหนไปเลยเพราะว่า time is very short and actually ตั้งแต่มีลูกอะทำให้รู้สึกเลยว่าว้าวมันเหมือนแบบ months go by so quickly. You know, you set milestones for work or whatever, or like health goals. Or okay, อีก3 เดือนจะทำไงแป๊บเดียว3 เดือนมาถึงละยังไม่ถึงไหนเลย so I think อยากทำอะไรมันต้องทำเลยสมัยนี้มันไม่มีใครรอใครแล้วอะ you have to just go for it and then launch first, fix later.
Oh my God, you said the 2 things I live by as well.
Really?
I mean, it's just, yes, like I think if I didn't do what I just felt like doing when I started Seeks, I would have never done it. If I just didn't build the studio when I wanted to do it, I would have never done it. Like, you are literally like, you know, someone that I called up and wanted to interview on the show and you said yes. And, you know, if it wasn't for you, like I would have to kind of like go to the next person. But essentially when we're discussing this internally as well, like would Bitesize come over? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll call Niki up and I'm pretty sure she will. I mean, you said yes on the first go, right? So like sometimes you just have to say yes right away, right? But I also do agree the fact that ว่าหลายคนแบบ you know they say hey we'll do this when this happens or like we'll wear our favorite ring when this happens. You're right, like time is the most valuable thing, right? So I couldn't agree more. And there's so many things that I mean especially what the second thing you said is like ทำไปก่อน and just fix later.
That's what I did with Bitesize เราเปลี่ยนโลโก้แบบรอบนึงอะlaunch ไปก่อนเลย launch ไปก่อนแล้วก็ไม่สวยทำเองแล้วก็รู้สึกว่าlaunch ไปก่อนแล้วกันเพราะไม่รู้จะไปดีไซน์จากไหนตอนแรก launch ไป2 เดือนแล้วค่อย hire branding agency ทำให้ใหม่หมด
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
ทำไปก่อน เพราะว่าถ้าเราไม่ทำ1คนอื่นจะทำ
ใช่กลัวคนอื่นแย่ง IG handle ก็เลยรีบทำเลย
คนอื่นจะทำแล้วก็เรื่องที่2คือถ้าเราไม่ทำเราจะไม่มีวันที่จะทำ
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You have to get out of your like procrastination zone.
Correct. Yeah. Well, Niki, I've had so much fun having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I have so many different ideas that I want to discuss with you because I'm a fan of Bitesize and I'd love to see it grow to the next level. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did with Niki. Keep following us for more conversations with based entrepreneurs, creators, and brands in the next episodes. Stay based. Sahib signing out.